assistance and urban forestry. We started urban forestry because of the emerald ash borer devastation in the city of Flint. Then assess knowing your community. Our community, Genesee County, is on the outside rim. It is rural, and agricultural. Moving in, it gets more suburban. And then in the center core, it's very urban. And that's where the city of Flint is in the most urbanized area of Genesee County. Genesee County is the 5th most populous county in Michigan with about 400,000 people. City of Flint is the county seat. GCD had traditional conservation partnerships at the time, back in 2011, with federal and state agencies. And then we built on that. And one of our first partnerships we built was with Genesee County Habitat for Humanity and others over time. So some of our assets and liabilities, or what I recommend you do, is use your conservation needs assessment and absolutely involve your board going through strategic planning. That process should include a review of your mission, your vision, your values, and then your priorities. Our mission is promoting natural resources conservation in our community, and our vision is an inspired community that lives sustainably with our natural environment. Our values are teamwork, optimism, progress, sincerity, and sustainability. Genesee CD was established in 1946. So our program priorities were, after going through that entire process, what it became evident is our priorities were forestry, urban agriculture, invasive species, green infrastructure installation, protecting waterways, and enhancing habitats. So next is, whether you're new to your position or find that your district is ready to grow, I suggest that you set out on an exploration adventure. Now, this exploration adventure for me, along with the assess portion, really evolved over time. It was a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then back again to assess. And then this continues today, do the same thing. To subscribe to various listservs such as NACD, so then natural resource agencies at the state level, the federal level, the local level, through private foundations, connect through social media channels, sign up for natural resource newsletter, nonprofits or others, so that you're getting all of this information coming to you while you're building relationships. Form relationships by getting to know people, attend community meetings, talk to people, receive input, ask questions. Are there gaps in service? Who is doing what where? So keep your mind open to working with non-natural resource serving agencies, as well as the natural resource serving agencies, the traditional partners, so both. Some of our non-traditional partnerships include Genesee County Land Bank, Kettering University, University of Michigan Flint and Ann Arbor, Crime Stoppers, various school districts, Consumers Energy Foundation, among many, many others. And another thing I did was I researched. I visited probably every conservation district in the nation, all close to 3,000 over time. I wanted to find out what others are doing, and other communities that look like us, and then other communities that don't look like us. And I find that it's important to seek funding sources that align with your mission, vision, values, and priorities. Said another way, stay in your lane. And then the learning part is, there's grant language if you're unfamiliar with it. And just for starters, and I did see that there is another grants webinar out there that probably would feed well into this one too, on NCDEA's YouTube channel. So RFP is request for proposal. RFA is request for applications. LOI is a letter of interest. Oftentimes a funder will put out a request for a letter of interest. And if they like your letter of interest, then it could go on to the next application process. Letter of support is something that oftentimes funders ask for a letter of support when you're applying for a grant with partners or others that support the project. Or you might be asked to write a letter of support to support someone else's, some other agency's application. Other stuff to become familiar with in the world of grants is a logic model or a theory of change. Those are oftentimes, if they're not asked for by the funder, they're always a good thing to use to get your head around what you intend to do, and then comes your plan of work out of that. Other stuff to learn is matching funds, cash and in kind, and if they're required or not required, and then indirect dollars and how indirect works. And moving on to the apply screen, there are no standard application processes. And there are no standard portals once you get a grant. Generally, funders request organizational information, a narrative or statement of need. And my recommendation to you is write clearly with strong verbs. I call it write tight. So tightly, not a lot of flowery language, but very strong verbs. Develop that logic model in a plan of work with deliverables that are achievable and realistic. And then develop your budget and ensure your grant application is complete and submitted before the deadline. Very critical. You may have the best application, you want to do the most wonderful stuff, but if it's late, you don't get to do it. And then moving on to implementation. There's this thing that happens when you receive notification of funding. It's the moment of, oh, yay, followed by, here we go. So with every new position created, it's important to do a capacity check. When you get a new grant, do a capacity check. Also, if the grant has a new position within it, develop the job description and post the openings, ensuring that the job responsibilities are clearly defined. Anytime you're adding a new person to the team, you know, you're going to go through all of the process of Storm Norman before you get to performing. So that's what I'm talking about here is clearly defined roles and responsibilities, both for new staff and existing staff. If the funder, so sometimes the funder can increase or decrease the award. So my advice is take the time to revise your plan of work. You'll thank yourself later. And then if your grant requires matching funds, develop a system to track those hours. We use a few different systems, but definitely take the time to do that too. And then after implementation, the next screen is about managing and reporting. So grants management requires responsibility and accountability to the funding agency so that the grantee, you, have hired qualified personnel that's going to deliver. The grant expenses are kept. The deliverables are achieved throughout the life of the grant. If changes are needed to the original plan, talk with the funder, and they're often really open to adapting plans because in the end, you both want success. And then reporting deadlines and frequency are established by the funder. Like I said, there's no two applications that are alike, and there are no two portals for reporting that are alike. Often it's monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, something like that. But even annually, I've had grants that we report on annually. Always adhere to the deadlines. drive that point home. Always adhere to the deadlines. What you want to do is build funding relationships with funders, and funders like it when we meet deadlines. We deliver, we meet deadlines, we stay within the budget. And they also they like pictures. They like those visuals. So take pictures that tell a story though. Don't just take a picture. Like, what does that picture say? And then send those to the funders too. And then moving on back to assessing. On here. So back to assessing, because now you've been through the whole application, you implemented, you managed a grant, and you reported a grant. Now it's time to go all over again and know your story. So back to our story, over time we've added numerous partners and funding relationships based on local priorities and mission. For example, back, I'm going to say about 10 years ago, when the community identified urban agriculture as a need, we secured an NACD Urban Ag grant and a cooperative agreement with NRCS for the High Tunnel Initiative. So we were able to bring that urban flavor to the work that we were doing. And that's what I have to say about that. To better serve the community. For the past several years, we've also focused on climate resilience and action. It's a high priority and likely it will remain that way into the future. So where we stand today, if I were assessing, which I did, in 2025, some highlights for us are we have 20 employees. We have a $2.2 million annual budget. In 2023, we secured a 5-year, $5 million USDA Forest Service IRA grant that we're implementing now. We're in just starting year 2. We remain co-located with NRCS, and we have a standalone district office outside of that with NRCS. We have about 20 grants from diverse funders, including local, county, state, and federal agencies, NACD, and private foundations. We've gone from that 3 programs to now we operate about 17 programs. But I will tell you, administratively, we are over capacity, but working on it. And this assessing thing that I talk about, all of these steps, this is ongoing forever. And moving on to the last or second to last slide, some key takeaways that I think are really important when we're talking about grants and growing your district is securing funding is a process. Always adhere to the RFP requirements. Please don't chase dollars. Do not partner on a grant before building a strong relationship or a strong partnership. I've seen that happen and it just goes sideways really fast. Seek funding opportunities that align with your mission, vision, priorities, and values. Build trust in the community. Trust harbors more trust. Form strong relationships and partnerships. Be sure to track your deliverables. Take pictures. Report on time. Diversify funding sources, really important. Success breeds success. And prepare for opportunities. Always prepare for opportunities. The opportunities may not be here right now, but you know what you need if you do your homework and know the direction your district is going, where you're going. A funding opportunity will come, but prepare for it. That Forest Service grant I talked about a minute ago, we had 1 month to write that thing, but we were prepared. We had been doing urban forestry for about close to 10 years at that point. So we were prepared to grow. Last slide, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'll take questions.
I'm muted. Okay. Did I stop screen sharing? It's just a technical day today, let me tell you. Thank you, Angela. That was awesome. I'm gonna kick off just a question that I have. Like, I'm very interested. Like, you've grown a lot in your district has, right? Like, you have built a lot through grants. How did you make the jump from like, should we, can we? How do you like bridge that? Like, how do you know when you're at a point where you're like, let's start adding some more?
Honestly, at the time there were three staff, and we were talking a lot and saying, we are not reaching our entire community, and this is wrong. Why had the three of us never heard of a conservation district? Although, albeit, we did not have a background in agriculture, but we're a natural resource serving agency, so why hadn't we heard of it? Well, we all grew up in the burbs or in the city. And so we set about with strong determination that we're about to change that. And so that was really the driving force to all of the strategic planning and knowing where are we going next, taking on smaller grants like 5,000 or 10,000 or applying for 25,000 before we jumped into huge grants.
Sure. And I think that's a good kind of segue, right? Like you don't have to jump in with the $2 million, $6 million, whatever. There's building blocks that you can build on. So one of the questions Julie has is about the conservation needs assessment. Is that the same as having like a business plan for your district?
It is, but the needs assessment is generally the questions. I think that is in NRCS, in our partnership agreements with NRCS, that we do a conservation needs assessment at least every 5 years. Might be
Mhm.
called a natural resources assessment too. So that should be built into creating your business plan.
Perfect. And then do you have a grants administrator position, Angela, in your district, or is it you?
It is me. That's why I say right now we're over capacity.
Yeah.
I have a couple people, business managers. We need to do more training.
Sure, sure. And I think that's something to consider, right? As you start building things out, you really do have to say, can we handle this? Like, we want to do it, but can we actually commit to doing it and doing it well? Those are hard conversations sometimes to have. So, let's see. Can you expand just a little bit on your urban forestry program? And how did you fund it prior to the USDA Forest Service funding?
So, um, I'm glad you asked this question because this one has really been something that we have built ourselves. It wasn't a program from the state, local, or um, federal partners. So we partner with the city of Flint in urban forestry. So, like I said, we started with the emerald ash borer and the devastation that caused. But at the same time, our city has had a lot of disinvestment. And so the dollars were not really at the city of Flint to keep its urban forestry program going. It was really under Parks and Rec. So they were down to like a half time person. And so we stepped in with a forester. Now, this is like 2 years before I started. So I'm not sure. I think it was a local foundation that gave us the seed money to start. And then another philanthropist, local philanthropist, offered some funding so that we could do some removals of these uh, ash trees that have been devastated by the emerald ash borer. So those two funders, and then the RC&D, we also started Urbanwood. Um, it went okay for a while, but then over time, we really strengthened our relationship with the city of Flint. And now the city of Flint provides funding to us, not a ton, but a little bit for us to operate and employ a forester. And then we've had DNR grants from the state of Michigan, so urban and community forestry funding. And yeah, it's just been applying for a lot of grants to keep that program going. For a time, I had a part-time forester, and then we're back up to a full-time forester.
Nice.
So it's that adaptability, I guess.
Absolutely. I think we all need to have that. Just that's districts, right? It's being flexible and it's being responsive to things, but also trying to think ahead about where the future is going to go and how we can position ourselves. So I think that's a good illustration of kind of things organically grow. And if you have a little bit of interest and drive and you can bring some people together, you can, I mean, you can go as far as you want to go. So there's some other questions on here. I'm going to hold off because they're kind of generic ones. So I think I'll hold till the end for those of you. So I'm not ignoring you in the question and answer box, but I think it's a good segue to visit with Jennifer and have her talk about her district is a lot different. It's not as urban, it's a lot smaller. And she has done a lot of the things that Angela's kind of talking about, like bridging that. How do we even get started? Like, how do we go from nothing to where Jenna or where Angela is now? And so Jennifer, I'm going to turn it over to you and say, go forth and tell us your amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. Angela, that was a great presentation. And when Danyana Soil Water Conservation District grows up, they're going to be like you.
Oh,
You came into a district office that had employees and you became the district manager. When I started Danyana Soil and Water Conservation District, um, I had to learn it all myself. So we had a budget of about $15,000 a year, which was only from legislative funding. Danyana Soil and Water does not have a mill levy. And so they hired me as a contractor, very, very part-time. And I also was like, I've never heard of Soil Water Conservation District. What is Soil Water Conservation District? I do not have an ag background either. So I reached out to other districts in New Mexico. And one of the ones I used is, if you want to call my mentor for how to grow our capacity was Taos Soil and Water. No, San Juan Soil and Water in Farmington. And their district manager, they didn't have a mill levy either. And I was like, Melissa, how do you do this? And so she gave me some of the keys. Again, to the point you were talking about, Angela, is working with your partners, working with your other districts, finding partners in other organizations and diversifying, you're right, diversifying your funding because sometimes this kind of funding dries up, so you've got to be able to have this funding over here. So if you're a small district, how are you going to do a grant? You're going to get a grant for uh, we reached out, one of the first ones we got was the NACD uh, Rural Community Garden Grant. That was one of the first ones we got because it didn't require a match because we couldn't do anything there, right? But it was just me. So how was I going to do this? Well, I knew someone who had a small community garden and she had a small business. It was called Backyard Farms. She knew somebody from Cruces Creatives, which is a local nonprofit makerspace, and they do a lot of different things. And sustainable agriculture is part of that. They also had a lot of expertise in managing a grant that I didn't really have. So, and then we also partnered with a local nonprofit gardening, farming, small farm called La Semilla. So we all got together on this grant, and actually, Backyard Farms and La Semilla wrote most of the grant because they were the subject matter experts. I identified my subject matter experts and we provided the mechanism of getting this money on the ground because it was going to be um, uh, private property, right? So the Soil Water Conservation District can put money on private property. That's one of our big stars. And with this first grant, that's what I found out is basically I outsourced all the work. I managed the grant, I did the reporting, I did the reimbursement of the expenses and submitting the reports and so on and so forth. What I didn't do, because it was my first grant, is I didn't manage it well enough that we spent all the money. And I know that Organizations that give you money to do work want you to put the money on the ground. They don't want the money back. So I have not applied for that grant again because I was like, I need to get them to forget about that, and then I'll apply again after they've forgotten I didn't do it well the first time 8 years ago. Um, so based on that success, that's also the first grant where I learned about indirect charge. Uh, I the same time we had that grant, which was a 1-year grant. We also had our BLM noxious weed grant. And again, I did the same thing. I identified a weed treatment specialist. I put him under contract. He did all the work. That's what you have to do when you're small. You don't have the capacity to do the work in-house. So you've got to outsource. You've got to find your subject matter experts and outsource it to them to do the work. And you do the administrative part. With the administrative part, you get that indirect charge. That's your profit, right? So that's how you can build your capacity little by little. And I was so grateful for the BLM grant because of the fact that the way BLM manages their funding through ASAP, it provided me the opportunity with my little bitty budget of $23,000 to be able to pay my weed treatment specialist $8,000, which is half of our budget practically, right? Because I can get it from ASAP right away. I don't have this lag waiting for it to come back or asking it for it to be funded up front, which is a whole different bunch of paperwork. And so over time, that's what we were able to do. And the state of New Mexico slowly has increased their legislative funding. Doñana Soil Water is still not at a point where we can go out for a mill levy, but we're getting close. And one of the reasons we're getting close is because 2 years ago, we also received that urban forestry IRA grant from the Forest Service, and it was a 5-year grant for $1 million. So we had made the move from 1-year grants, right? 1-year grants, 1-year grants, 1-year grants. You're just writing grants all year long to get your funding for the next year, and your next year, and your next year. Because we got that 5-year grant for $1 million, they were able to hire me as an employee and a part-time admin person. And we did our Neighborwoods program. And so after the first year, we had outsourced the program coordination for Neighborwoods and the education, and we had somebody who's providing us the trees and that kind of thing. But what we decided to do is my admin person was very excited about this program, and she went through the tree steward program training and all this stuff. So we brought the program in-house. It's the first one that we've started doing in-house with our staff. And that was a big, big step for us. Then when we were able to get some interns, that was great. We've been able to hire one of those interns. So now I have a staff. In the last 2 years, we've gone from me as a contract employee with a budget of $28,000 for legislative funding, not counting grants, to having an office and a staff of 4 people. And our budget is non-grant budget is $80,000 because of the work that NMACD has been doing with our state legislators to help provide soil water conservation districts with more funding. And that is what is bringing about now this accountability and the importance, because soil water conservation districts in New Mexico, if you don't have a mill levy, you are a poor little district. And now that we've got this increased legislative funding so that we can, for capacity building, we can get staff in that can help us write grants, that can help do some of the admin work. So then we can go and bring in a field tech to go out. And again, as you were talking about, Angela, working with your other organizations. So we have a grant now with the Interstate Stream Commission for the next 3 years for $273,000. We're doing a cover crop program with them. We have a 1 year, well, 1.5 year grant with the New Mexico Department of Agriculture's Healthy Soil Program doing cover crop. And we have our noxious weed grant, we have our neighborhoods grant, and we have our rangeland conservation grant with BLM, where we're doing watershed restoration work up above the orphan dam structures that are being identified. One of the other things you had talked about was mission and vision, and my supervisors have not done that work. So I have, that was one of the challenges I had at the beginning was what kind of work can we do? Because I go and talk to other districts and they're doing stuff in the forest. Well, we don't have any forest here. They're doing stuff along the river. Well, in southern New Mexico, the river gets turned on and off and it only runs for like a month and a half and then it's gone. So, when I was at one of the conferences, I had a conversation with someone from Forestry Service, and they said, "Oh, we do watershed work too, not necessarily just work, just in the forest." So I was like, "Watershed, okay, all right." So then that's when we found what our niche was. We've got a lot of watershed restoration work that needs to be done in southern Doñana County because of these microburst storms that we have, and it does flooding. It removes all the soil from the watershed and dumps it in the river. So then, IBWC has to go and take it all out of the river and find where it's got to go. And so that kind of work, there's a lot of opportunities for that. So we are working with the New Mexico State University Water Resource Research Institute and also High Desert Native Plants, and they are two of our contractors for that rangeland grant. Finding these opportunities and identifying the needs. So as a conservation districts that traditionally work with your local producers, we were not. And now with these new opportunities through the cover crop program, though, we are back to working with our producers. And the other thing we are doing is because we do want to at some point go after a mill levy, and the city of Las Cruces is right in the middle of our district, we need to let them know who we are. And our neighborhoods program is the perfect opportunity for that because we are planting trees in the city of Las Cruces. So we spent last year doing education presentations around the county in the smaller little towns like Vado and La Mesa and Sunland Park, and letting them know about Doñana Soil Water Conservation District and what kind of things are we doing. We are grateful. One of our supervisors is from a small town south of Las Cruces in Chaparral, and we haven't had much of a presence there. But because he was there, we found out they have this bi-monthly meeting that we go to, and we can meet legislators, we can meet the people there, we can meet the police department, the sheriff's department, fire department, those kind of people, and make those relationships. So when you're small, the important part is again capacity. And starting out, when you're starting out small, you need to outsource the work until you can bring it in-house. When you have the money to support your staff for the duration plus, so you don't want them just working until the end of the program and then you got to let them go. So start planning for that. And that's something we're familiar with around here, or maybe other places are familiar with. If you've got, like we've got several military bases around here, and if you work for military base, one of the contractors, you know that next year you might not have a job because they didn't get the contract, so they got to let everybody go. We don't want to work that way. So I was really wanted to make sure that we had we're able to sustain our staff past the duration of the contracts. And so that's what I'm continuing to look for. And like I said, that Neighborhoods grant was the one that really bridged us from the year to years to something really more sustainable. And I'm so grateful that my supervisors have supported us in everything we're doing. And we're just thrilled to death. This is, yeah, the second month we're in our office. And it's great not working out of your house. So
I
if
I
anybody's
love
got any
that.
questions, yeah.
Well, I met Jennifer in February for the first time in person, and she's like, we don't have an office yet, but we will. And there was a couple of us on our NCDEA board who were like, you want to make a bet on how soon she has an office?
And June 1st, we had our office.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think it's a great illustration. I think both districts are of how you can use grants to really build up your services to your community, build up the programs that you're providing, and eventually work into, yeah, now we have full-time actual district staff who are serving our producers, which I think is
Hmm.
fantastic. So a couple questions for, and I'm going to direct them to both of you. Maybe Jennifer, you can start, and then Angela, you can chime in. Relating to how do you, when you're writing your grants and you're thinking about the projects, how do you write in so that you're able to get employees, whether they be contract or district employees? And then also thinking about that kind of profitability of grants. I think sometimes that gets lost in our drive to implement a project, but how are we making some money back, like through those indirect costs, through those administrative costs? What goes to your mind as you're planning those out to make sure that some money is coming back in to put back into the district to support programs?
Right. So for us, I will say the first grant I did with BLM, I didn't know about indirect charge, so I didn't charge any indirect charge. Lesson learned. Um, and now we're at a point where because we have overhead, I need to calculate what our indirect charge is for the upcoming grants. Um, and I will say that I have not yet written a grant to add current staff. So the grants that I have written in the past have always, in my mind, been outsourced as a contractor. So who's got to do this job? And I kind of find a subject matter expert who, if they were contracted, would do the work and have them do the write-up for it as part of my proposal because they're the subject matter expert, and they also would have input as to what kind of funding would be required to fill that position. So I look for the subject matter experts to assist me with that.
Angela, how about you from your perspective?
Yeah, so I am looking at sustainability. Um, but I'm also looking at when I hire someone for a grant, I always tell them this is 1 year. Unless the funder claws back the money within the first year, this grant is for 1 year. Renewable potentially, but I can't guarantee it. And so that is how I am upfront. As far as capacity building with indirect, yes, it has happened. We use the de minimis 10% and always have. Like Jennifer, or unlike Jennifer, we have not used it. We've been building up our coffers with that indirect. But I see it as a rainy day fund. If we do need to sustain somebody, we have that in our coffers.
The Angela, I've got a question. Last year, through NMDA, they had told us that the de minimis rate changed to 15%.
My understanding, Jennifer, is that was effective October 1st, 2024.
Okay.
So I've not written any new grants since
Oh,
October
okay.
1st,
I see what you're talking
2024.
about. Okay. Now I understand what you're saying. Okay.
That's a
But I'm
good
in the
point, though.
process. I'm in the process of it, updating our cooperative agreements with NRCS. So I imagine that will go to 15%.
Yeah. That's a good point to make sure that you are taking that. It is available.
Right.
Most grants have it. Some grants won't let you. You have to read through the grant to make sure
Mhm.
that it's applicable. But it's something that I think what a great way to just add in some money, whether you put that back into the project that you're writing the grant for, or you're putting it away for that rainy day fund of we might need this at some point. It's a good way to help you build up your district.
Right. The other piece I do want to talk about that since we're talking about when you're looking at your contractors, pay attention to their budgets. We got smacked in the head with our rangeland grant. One of the subcontractors I had identified was NMSU WRRI. Universities charge a 46% indirect charge, and BLM went nuts. And so after the first year, we didn't renew with them, and we're going to find a non-university resource to do that piece of our contract moving forward. But I was stunned. I had no idea because that means almost 50% of the money we're getting is not going on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
something to look at when you're partnering
yeah,
with folks and all of
universities. Yeah.
the small
Because
details.
Yeah, because Angela, you said you do a bunch with universities, right?
But they did not write the grants. We partner with them, so we have written the grants because of that very thing you're talking about, the high indirect that
Mm-hmm.
charge. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that leads into another question about just as you're writing the grants for some of the programs, do you always look at outsourcing the work, hiring contractors or, finding your grant employees? Or have you started to build in where now we are writing it for district employees to do the work and we're writing in salary dollars? Um,
When I've got a couple of task agreements coming up for my BLM master agreement, and that is going to involve growers, so that's contracting out. But I also am implementing funding for my field tech. So she'll be working with the growers and she'll be going and doing that kind of stuff. So we're gonna get more in-house as we can. And so that's the bridge I'm starting to make myself. So that's still kind of new for me, but that's how I'm beginning to do it.
Angela, how about you? Do you use contractors or partners to complete the work, or is it primarily district employees?
Primarily district employees, but we do contract out some of the work. For
Nice.
years, we contracted out the urban forestry work, the removals and the trims and the
Mhm.
plantings even. But now we do that work in-house.
Nice. Nice. Let's talk a little bit about, there's a couple questions about how do you find grants? What are the good resources that are out there to help you write grants? Like you both have been extensively engaged in grants. So what is some advice for, resources to find them, resources to use to help you write them? Where can folks find those? Are there like universally known things or places that you both like to visit frequently?
I find that once you get on those listservs and those newsletters and you go to community meetings and you get on everyone's newsletter and social media and all of that, and you get your email address out in the world, they come to you. The opportunities come to you, but there's always like grants.gov. You can go search that for federal grants, state grants. I think, well, I can only speak for Michigan. So, go to the various departments of your state and look for those grants. That's what I have. Jen?
I would say the New Mexico Association of Conservation Districts is very aggressive, if you want to put it that way, and letting the districts know what grants are available. They're always looking for us, and they send us out a bunch. I'm wanting our state conservation district employees group to also be doing something to that effect. Also, like you said, grants.gov. And your partner agencies will come to you and say, hey, there's this grant for this thing. We've gotten grants, opportunities through the Bureau of Reclamation. We've gotten Bureau of Land Management, the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. So yes, your state Department of Agriculture. We have something in New Mexico called the Water Trust Board. A lot of times they have funding for us. With your local legislators, have them get funding in the state house for capacity building, for instance. That's what they did this time. Over the years, our legislators have provided money so that the Department of Ag can have a noxious weed grant, an education grant. NRCS, our state NRCS, had an education grant for a long time. So working with your partner agencies and finding out what they again, if you're in a area that's got forest around, look to the Forest Service. Let's see, ours, Natural Resource, Department of Natural Resources, so many those state agencies and the federals. And again, as Angela was talking about, spreading it around so that if the federal funds dry up, you've still got your state funds. That was toward the beginning of the year. I was starting to make that shift myself because I wasn't sure if our Neighborhoods grant was going to dry up, or especially since it was IRA funded, or if our BLM money was going to go away. We have been really blessed. All of our funding is still in place. We are very, very happy about that. Our BLM staff is overwhelmed because they're a little shorthanded, so is NRCS. However, we're trying to, we're patient with them and help them as any way we can as we continue to do our work with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's good too to talk just a little bit about, as you're looking at those places to find grant opportunities, a lot of them also have resources on how to write those grants or what they're looking for, or some of your, state associations, state agencies have people on staff who write grants. What a great resource to reach
Yes.
out to say, hey, I am looking at writing a grant. I need some help. I need some tips, tricks, all of the things. Utilize those local resources because they are a
Right.
big help and they want you to succeed, right? The better
Hmm.
you do, the better collectively we all do in conservation. And so,
Right.
lots of good
Sarah,
people there.
Sarah, if I could add, I would suggest someone who's nervous about writing grants or not really that familiar with it, um, dive into one time. Take a look at something you're not quite ready for and look at the questions and how you would answer in a narrative form. Do that on your off time, do that on your whatever, and then share it with someone you don't know. I mean, share it with someone who isn't working for the conservation district. That's what I mean. Somebody you know and trust that will give you honest feedback. Did you convince them? Or how should you improve your writing skills to convince that person and then hopefully convince the funder when the actual funding opportunity comes your way?
Yes. And the other thing I want to add on to that, Angela, is that um, the, and you had mentioned it in your presentation, the platforms and the forms for these, all of them are different. Forestry Services got their own, Grants.gov's got theirs, NMDA's got theirs, NACD has theirs. They're all different and changed. But the other thing I wanted to also say is, like for instance, the Bureau of Reclamation. If you want to put in a Water Smart grant, they will show you all the other grants that have ever been submitted and awarded so that you can get a sense of what they're looking for and what kind of things to be included in. You find something that's with the topic, that the subject matter that you're putting in a grant for, and you're going to find some grant examples that you can look at that were successful, right? They were funded, and you can use that as part of your research for what to put into yours. And I'm sure the other agencies have the same. It's not exclusive to the Bureau of Reclamation, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, very true. That's a good idea. A lot of grant programs will show you previous award winner grants, like their
Hmm.
applications. So what a great way to go back and look at that. So two final questions as we're getting close to our time limit here. One, Holly's looking for some advice from our experts that we have with us today on developing an education and outreach program and then finding support for funding it. Any just quick thoughts off that? Have either of you done one of those, first of all, and then
Yes.
any thoughts on that?
Yes, Holly. So we work with our county drain commission who runs the MPDES. And that is where we have done our outreach and education. So we partner with them to deliver the messaging that they want put out there for MPDES. So that's about half of part-time of a person's work. And then we fill that with other grants, the other half-time to make a full-time position.
And then we just had one of our NRCS grants that we got this past year. Actually, we did two education ones. One we did with an NMDA education grant, and that's where we went out into the different places around the Diana County, the smaller little towns, and we did presentations and gave them information about all the different kind of programs that we have. And then the other education grant that we did was through the NRCS grant. And several years ago, we tried to do a program called the Master Watershed Conservationist Program. It's kind of like Master Gardeners, but for watershed conservation. And it didn't really work how we wanted it to. Plus, the implementation period was right in the middle of COVID, so it was really hard for us to do the on-the-ground stuff that we wanted to do. So what we ended up doing was videos. So I got 5 subject matter experts, one in meteorology, one on flooding, one on soils, one on rivers and streams, one in stormwater management, and one on water rights. And so we had them do presentations and we videotaped them. We put them on Zoom. And we also made available the presentations, and it was very successful. We had people from like schools from California and stuff reaching out to look at our YouTube. And so it was about 2 years later. So I said, well, let's do the series again. So we just finished it up. Our last one was with Dr. Dave Dubois, who's our state climatologist. And the Interstate Stream Commission was one of our presenters, our Diana County Flood Commissioner, stormwater expert at the City of Las Cruces, and Mike Gallio from High Desert Native Plants. He did a presentation on dust mitigation, which is a big problem down here because we don't not get enough water and the ground's not covered up. So those opportunities, education, I have found that grants for education are very readily accessible. A lot of people really want education, and it's really kind of easy to fit education into some of these grant nofos.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think it's a great thing going back to Angela's discussion on, you know, think about what your mission is. Think about what your district goals and objectives are. Think about what your strategic plan looks like as you're trying to build out those education programs, and then say, okay, here's what we want to do. Let's go find some funding for it. I think there's a lot of super interesting things that are out there, and I love the video series. And I think we do education in a lot of different ways that you can write into other grants too, that allows you some flexibility to do some things. So let's close with this one. And Angela, I'm going to start with you. What is one of the biggest challenges that you faced when applying for grants, and how do you overcome that?
Pondering. Well,
I'm
I will
gonna,
say that I I think I used to be a little more timid than I am now. I feel very empowered to go for what we need to make our community, right, the vision of our community, a sustainable community that lives with nature. So I think that's it. Whenever I feel a little like I'm challenged too much, how many hours do I want to work on this? I remember what our vision is.
Nice. I love that. How about you, Jennifer?
One of the challenges I've had for many, many years was always there were grants available and I didn't have projects. And so what I found was I have to work with my partners that I've worked with in the past. And I do that, I was like, oh, we've got this. Are you interested in this? And like, yeah, yeah. And so, one of my our partners is High Desert Native Plants, and Mike is works with us on our Neighborhoods program, and he works with me on my Rangeland program, and then I've got some other program for him to work on my Seeds for Success or somebody else. And they just keep saying yes, and so they help me write it up and get it submitted and that kind of thing, because that's usually the thing is I don't have the projects. I can see the money, but I don't have the projects.
Nice. I love it. I think both of those are like just being visionary to a certain extent, right? And not getting discouraged or thinking, no, I can't. It's taking that
No,
first
yeah,
first
yeah.
leap.
And the other thing is don't go with blinders on. It's just got to be this. It's applying for grants, I find to be very creative process.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. You got to be flexible.
Yep.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. I really appreciate you joining us today. We will have this recording posted to the website, ncdea.us, and I will include both Jennifer and Angela's contact information.
Thank you.
And so that if you have questions, please reach out to them. I'm
You
sure they
bet.
would be more than happy to visit with you on anything that you may be thinking of. And I'll just close with a plug for next month. We will actually be doing a live stream of our mid-year, one of the sessions at our mid-year employees training. So it'll be a little bit different setup than it is this month, but that one will be on district operations. We're going to be talking about some training resources that are out there with the Washington Center for Technical Development. And then we're also going to be talking a little bit more about some grants and some opportunities for some unique community partnerships, which I think is always fun to hear about and kind of gets your brain thinking about how you can relate those to your local districts at home. So I hope you will join us next month, August 27th, same time, same place. Jennifer, Angela, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys joining us, and I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of July.
All right.